Christmas meant something different when you had nothing, not the carols or the presents or the decorated trees you've seen in old paintings. That came later. For now, imagine London in 1850, 5 million souls packed into streets so narrow the fog couldn't escape. And somewhere in the East End, in a room you'd mistake for a closet, a boy is about to wake up on Christmas Eve. Here's what it was actually like to survive that night when you were one of the forgotten. If you're finding this story interesting so far, go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love seeing how far and wide these stories travel. Now, while you're wrapped up in your blankets tonight, warm and fed with that glass of water sitting right there on your nightstand, think about this. That simple comfort, that basic warmth you're feeling right now is something people would have killed for in the London we're about to visit together. So let's go there. Let's go back. The cold wakes you before anything else, not gradually either. It hits you all at once, sharp as broken glass, because the fire went out sometime in the night and nobody had the coal to restart it. Your name is William, you're 9 years old, and today is December the 24th, 1850. Your eyes open to darkness. The room smells of mildew and damp wool and something else, something harder to name. It's the smell of too many bodies packed into too small a space, of clothes that haven't been properly washed in weeks, of breath hanging visible in air cold enough to hurt your lungs. Your mother is pressed against your back, her thin arm draped across you, and your younger sister is curled against your chest like a cat seeking heat. This is your bed. Well, it's not really a bed at all. It's a straw mattress, maybe 3 inches thick, stuffed so full of dried grass and old rags that it crinkles every time you move. The straw has gone flat in places and pokes through the ticking in others. If you were being honest, you've slept on harder things. There was that winter 2 years ago when the family lived on the street for nearly a month, a doorway in Spitalfields. Your father had just died of the cholera, and your mother couldn't pay the rent alone, so the 3 of you huddled in an alley wrapped in a single blanket that smelled of horse, while snow fell and fell and fell. The mattress, flat and poking as it is, feels like luxury compared to that. You lie still for a moment, listening. London is already waking up. You can hear the clatter of carriage wheels on cobblestones somewhere in the distance, muffled by fog but unmistakable. There's the cry of a milkmaid, her voice thin and reedy in the cold. Mio, Mio, that's her call, short for milk below, though most people don't even notice anymore. The sound has become part of the city's rhythm, like the church bells or the rumble of the railway. Your breath makes little clouds in the darkness. The room you share with your mother and sister is in a building that was probably nice once, maybe 50 years ago, when the Huguenot silk weavers lived here, and the neighbourhood was something other than what it is now. You've heard stories about that, about how these houses used to have proper families in them, one family per floor, with servants and good furniture and windows that didn't rattle every time the wind blew. Now there are 11 families in this building, 11 crammed into rooms that were never meant to hold so many bodies. The walls have been divided with cheap wooden partitions that don't quite reach the ceiling, so you can hear everything. The baby crying 3 rooms over, the man coughing on the floor above, that wet, rattling cough that means the consumption is taking hold. The couple arguing downstairs, their voices rising and falling in a rhythm as familiar as the church bells. You know all of them. You know Mrs. Hennessy, who lost her husband in a factory accident last spring and now takes in washing to feed her 5 children. You know Mr. Potts, the one-armed sailor who drinks his entire pay before the week is out and then begs for bread. You know the Murphy family, fresh from Ireland, still speaking with accents so thick you can barely understand them, still with that haunted look in their eyes that all the Irish seem to carry. You know what that look means now. You've heard the stories, the famine, the potato blight, the ships crammed with dying people, packed so tight that the healthy ones couldn't even move away from the sick. The Murphys lost 4 children on the crossing. 4, and they're the lucky ones. They made it. Your stomach growls. This is the part of the morning you hate most, this hollow ache that sits in your belly like a stone, reminding you that dinner last night was thin gruel and a crust of bread so hard you had to dip it in water before you could chew it, reminding you that breakfast probably won't be any better if there's breakfast at all. Your mother works at a laundry 6 days a week, starting before dawn and finishing long after dark. She comes home with her hands raw and cracked, sometimes bleeding, the skin so red it looks like she's been dipping them in fire instead of wash water. She makes 4 shillings a week. 4 shillings. Out of that comes the rent, which is 2 shillings for this single room with its leaking ceiling and its view of the brick wall next door. Out of that comes coal when there's coal to be had. Out of that comes food. There's never enough for all of it. So you work too. You've been working since you were 6, back when your father was still alive and the family lived in a slightly better room in a slightly better neighbourhood. Not good, mind you. Never good, but better. Your father worked at the docks, loading and unloading ships until the day a crate slipped from its chains and crushed his leg. The infection set in 3 days later. He was dead in a week. That's how fast things can change. One accident, one slip, one moment of bad luck, and suddenly you're not just poor, you're desperate. You push the thin blanket aside and sit up slowly, trying not to wake your mother. She needs the sleep more than you do. She was up past midnight last night, mending a shirt for one of the neighbours in exchange for a few potatoes. Her needlework in the candlelight, the way her face looked in the flickering flame, hollow-cheeked and tired, but still somehow beautiful. You remember thinking she looked older than she should. She's only 28, but the work has aged her, worn her down like water wearing at a stone. The floor is cold under your bare feet. Of course it is. Everything is cold. The walls are cold to the touch, sweating with condensation that freezes into tiny patterns of ice near the window. The window itself is stuffed with rags where the glass has cracked, but the wind still whistles through, carrying that distinctive London smell, coal smoke and horse manure, and the faint, ever-present stink of the river, the Thames. You can't see it from here, but you can always smell it, especially in summer when the heat makes the stench unbearable and people faint in the streets and newspapers write about the great stink as though it's some kind of joke instead of something that makes you gag every time you walk past the water. The river is where the sewers empty. It's where the factories dump their waste. It's where the poor bathe and wash their clothes because there's no running water in the slums and the pumps on the street corners often run dry. People drink from that river sometimes when they're desperate enough. You've done it once, when the thirst got bad enough that you didn't care anymore. You scooped the brown water in your cupped hands and drank, trying not to think about what was floating in it, trying not to look too closely at the surface. You were sick for 3 days afterward, shaking with fever in this very room while your mother mopped your forehead with a rag and prayed to a god she wasn't sure was listening. You haven't drunk from the Thames since. Now you creep across the room to where your clothes are piled in the corner. Clothes is a generous word for them. You have one pair of trousers, patched so many times they're more patch than original fabric. You have a shirt that used to be white and is now a sort of greyish yellow, the colour of old newspaper. You have a jacket with no buttons and a hole under the left arm that your mother keeps meaning to fix but never quite gets around to. You have no socks, no underclothes, no hat. You have shoes. This is important. A lot of children in the rookeries don't have shoes, especially in winter. They walk barefoot on the frozen cobblestones, their feet turning blue, the skin cracking and bleeding. You've seen children lose toes to frostbite. You've seen children die from infections that started in their feet and spread upward until their whole bodies went hot with fever and they stopped moving. Your shoes are too small. They pinch your toes and rub blisters on your heels, but they're shoes. They're yours. Your mother traded 3 days' wages for them at a second-hand stall in Petticoat Lane, and every time you put them on, you think about that, about what she gave up so you wouldn't lose your feet to the cold. You dress quickly, shivering, your teeth chattering so hard you're afraid you'll wake your sister. She doesn't wake. Children learn to sleep through anything in the rookeries, the noise, the cold, the hunger pangs that twist your stomach in the middle of the night. You learn to sleep because sleep is the only escape you have, the only time when you're not hungry, not cold, not afraid, the only time when you can dream about something other than this. Your sister's name is Emma. She's 6 years old and small for her age, the kind of small that comes from not getting enough food during the years when a body is supposed to be growing. Her hair is brown like yours, like your mother's, but lighter at the ends where the sun catches it. When she smiles, she has a gap where her 2 front teeth used to be. She lost them last month and she keeps the teeth in a little cloth bag under the mattress like they're treasures. You love her more than anything in the world. That's the thing they don't tell you about poverty. It's not just misery. It's not just suffering. There's love too, fierce, protective love that burns so hot it can almost keep you warm on nights when the fire goes out. You die for Emma. You'd steal for her. You'd do things you don't want to think about if it meant she had enough to eat. You hope it never comes to that. The door to your room sticks. It always sticks, swollen with damp, and you have to put your shoulder against it and push hard to get it open. The hallway beyond is even colder than the room, if that's possible. A single candle gutters in a wall sconce, casting jumping shadows on the water-stained wallpaper. Someone has left a chamber pot at the top of the stairs. The smell is sharp and unmistakable. There's no privy inside the building, just a single outdoor toilet in the yard, shared by all 11 families, which means at least 50 people. In summer, it overflows. In winter, the waste freezes and accumulates until someone breaks it up with a shovel. You try not to think about it too much. You try not to think about a lot of things. You make your way down the stairs, stepping carefully to avoid the broken step third from the bottom, past the ground floor where the landlord's agent lives, the man who collects the rent every Saturday and throws families out on the street when they can't pay, past the front door, which doesn't quite close all the way, letting in a knife edge of cold air that cuts right through your jacket, and then you're outside, London. The fog is thick this morning, thick enough that you can barely see across the narrow street. Gas lamps flicker in the murk, casting circles of yellowish light that seem to float in the grey. The cobblestones are slick with a thin layer of ice, treacherous underfoot. And you walk carefully, one hand trailing along the brick wall for balance. The street is already coming to life. Costermongers are setting up their barrows, arranging cabbages and turnips and bruised apples in careful pyramids. A woman is selling hot potatoes from a tin box with a fire in the bottom, her voice cutting through the fog. Hot taters for a cold morning. The smell is incredible. Your mouth waters so hard it almost hurts. You don't have a penny for hot potatoes. You don't have a penny for anything. Not yet. This is your job, what you do to help your family survive. You're a crossing sweeper, which means you stand at the corner of a busy street and sweep the horse manure and mud out of the way so wealthy people can cross without getting their fine shoes dirty. It's not much of a job. It's barely a job at all, but on a good day you can make a few pence, enough to buy a loaf of bread, enough to keep the family eating for one more day. Today is Christmas Eve. You know what that means. More people on the streets than usual, more carriages, more horses, more gentlemen and ladies in their fine clothes rushing from shop to shop, arms full of packages wrapped in bright paper. The wealthy are in a generous mood around Christmas. Some of them, the ones who've read their Dickens, who've heard the story of Scrooge and the ghost of Christmas yet to come, who feel a little pang of guilt when they see a ragged child shivering in the cold. You've learned to play that guilt like a fiddle. You know how to look up at a passing gentleman with big, hopeful eyes. You know how to duck your head and murmur, "Thank you, sir," in a voice that trembles just enough to tug at the heartstrings. You know how to be pathetic. Because pathetic is what pays. Pathetic is what puts bread on the table. You hate it. You hate every second of it, but you do it anyway, because what's the alternative? The workhouse? You've heard the stories about the workhouse, the gruel so thin you can see the bottom of the bowl, the endless hours of picking oakum until your fingers bleed. The family separated, husbands from wives, parents from children, as though love itself is something that needs to be punished. No. Not the workhouse. Not ever. You reach your corner just as the church bells begin to ring. 6 o'clock. The sound rolls out across the city, low and sonorous, marking the start of another day of cold and hunger and desperate scrambling for survival, another day of watching the wealthy walk by in their warm coats and leather boots, their breathmaking clouds in the freezing air, their minds on Christmas trees and roasted goose and presents wrapped in ribbon. You pick up your broom. It's a homemade thing, really, just a bundle of twigs tied to a stick with a piece of rope. The bristles are worn down to nothing in places, and the whole thing wobbles when you sweep, but it does the job. It pushes the muck aside, carves a path through the filth, makes a clean space for the gentry to cross. The first carriage of the morning comes rattling down the street. You take a breath, the cold air burns your lungs, and then you start to sweep. The horse manure steams gently in the freezing air, fresh enough that you can feel the warmth radiating from it as your broom pushes it aside. There's something almost funny about that. The horses of the wealthy, eating their fill of oats and hay, produce more heat in their droppings than you'll feel all day. You've thought about it before, in a bitter sort of way, how the waste of the rich is warmer than the homes of the poor. The carriage slows as it approaches the crossing. Through the fog, you can see a face in the window, a woman, middle-aged with a bonnet trimmed in velvet and what looks like a fur collar around her neck. She's looking out at the street with that particular expression you've come to recognize. Not disgust, exactly. More like the way someone might look at an interesting insect. Curious, but distant, as though you're something to be observed rather than a person to be acknowledged. You sweep faster, clearing a path. The carriage lurches across, the wheels throwing up droplets of dirty water that spatter against your trousers. The woman doesn't look at you again. The carriage doesn't stop. No coin comes flying from the window. No voice calls out a Merry Christmas or a God bless you. That's fine. That happens more often than not. You've learned not to expect anything. That way disappointment doesn't hit quite so hard. The fog shifts, swirls, another carriage appears, and another. The street is getting busier now, filling with the rumble of wheels and the clatter of hooves and the shouts of drivers. Make way! Make way! A cart loaded with cabbages nearly clips you as it passes, the driver cursing at his horse, his face red with cold. A gentleman in a top hat hurries past on foot, his walking stick tapping against the cobblestones in a rapid rhythm, his eyes fixed straight ahead. Nobody looks at you. That's the strange thing about being poor in London. You become invisible. People's eyes slide right past you, as though you're part of the scenery, no more important than a lamppost or a pile of rubbish. They don't see you. They don't want to see you. Seeing you would mean acknowledging that you exist, and acknowledging that you exist would mean feeling something. Guilt, perhaps, or pity. Or that uncomfortable squirm in the stomach that comes from knowing your comfort is built on someone else's suffering. Easier not to look, easier to pretend the poor simply aren't there. You sweep, the morning wears on. Your arms ache, your feet are going numb inside your too small shoes. The cold has crept into your bones, settled there like an unwelcome guest, and you can't shake it no matter how fast you work. Your breath comes in ragged gasps, visible in the freezing air, and your fingers have turned that particular shade of greyish purple that means you need to warm them soon or risk losing feeling altogether. But you can't stop, not yet. The pennies have started to come. A gentleman with mutton chop whiskers and a kind face, a lady in a green dress who smiled at you as she crossed, a young man who looked like a clerk, his collar stiff with starch, who pressed a halfpenny into your palm and said, "Merry Christmas, lad," in a voice that sounded like he meant it. You have 5p now. 5p. That's enough for a small loaf of bread. That's enough for a tin of tea. That's enough to make this one of your better days, and the morning isn't even half over yet. The thought warms you more than any fire could. 5p means your family will eat tonight. 5p means your mother's face will relax for just a moment when you hand over the coins, that worried crease between her eyebrows smoothing out, her lips curving into something that isn't quite a smile but is close enough. 5p means Emma might get her extra crust, might go to bed with her stomach not quite so empty. You're thinking about this, about what you'll buy with the money, when you hear the singing. It comes from somewhere down the street, rising above the clatter and the shouts and the endless rumble of wheels, voices lifted in harmony, weaving together in a melody you recognise from church. From those rare Sundays when your mother takes you to services and you sit in the back pew and try not to fall asleep during the sermon. God rest ye merry gentlemen, let nothing you dismay. Remember Christ our Saviour was born on Christmas Day. Carol singers, you stop sweeping for a moment, just listening. The song fills the foggy air, beautiful and haunting, and for just a second you forget about the cold. You forget about the hunger gnawing at your belly. You forget about everything except the music. The pure, simple joy of voices raised in celebration. Then the song ends, and the fog closes in again. And you remember that you're standing on a street corner in the East End of London, surrounded by horse manure and mud, while somewhere in the West End the wealthy are decorating their Christmas trees with candles and dried fruit and sweets, hanging presents from the branches, gathering around the fire to drink punch and sing carols and pretend that everyone in the world is as warm and fed as they are. You pick up your broom. And you keep sweeping. The fog lifts a little around mid-morning, and that's when the real crowds start. You've been at your corner for maybe 4 hours now. Your broom has worn down another inch, the twigs splaying out at the ends like fingers reaching for something just out of grasp. Your collection of coins has grown to 7p halfpenny, which is better than you'd hoped, better than most days. A woman in a blue cloak gave you a whole penny and told you to buy yourself something warm. A vicar pressed a halfpenny into your hand and blessed you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, his breath smelling faintly of communion wine. You thanked them all. You always thank them, even when you don't feel thankful, even when what you really feel is a kind of burning shame that sits in your chest like a hot coal. But shame doesn't fill bellies. Pride doesn't keep your sister from crying in the night. So you swallow it down and you smile and you say, "God bless you, sir," or "Thank you kindly, ma'am." And you mean it. You do, because they didn't have to stop. They could have walked right past you like everyone else. Most people do. Around 10 o'clock, you leave your corner. This is a risk. Another crossing sweeper might take your spot while you're gone, might claim it as his own, and then you'd have to find somewhere else to work or fight him for it. Fighting isn't something you're good at. You're small for your age, thin in a way that makes old women click their tongues and shake their heads, and the bigger boys know it. They can see it in the way you hold yourself, in the narrowness of your shoulders, in the careful way you move. But you have to leave. You have to see the markets, not to buy anything. You don't have that kind of money, and even if you did, you'd take it straight home to your mother. No, you're going to the markets because Christmas Eve in London is something that has to be witnessed. It's a spectacle, a performance, a mad swirl of colour and sound and smell that happens once a year and then vanishes like smoke. And because, if you're honest with yourself, you're hungry. Not just in your stomach, hungry in your eyes, hungry in your soul, hungry for something beautiful in a life that rarely offers beauty. The markets give you that. For an hour or two you can walk among the stalls and pretend you're someone else, someone who belongs there. Someone who might actually buy a hot pie or a twist of roasted chestnuts or a sprig of holly to hang above the door. The streets get more crowded as you head west. People flow around you like water around a stone, not quite touching, not quite acknowledging your existence. Gentlemen in tall hats, ladies with their skirts held above the muck, showing glimpses of petticoat and ankle, clerks in their black coats, hurrying on errands for their employers. Servants carrying parcels wrapped in brown paper and string, their arms full, their faces red with exertion. Everyone is going somewhere. Everyone has purpose. You slip between them, small and quick, keeping to the edges of the crowd. You've learned how to move in London, how to make yourself narrow, how to dodge and weave, how to find the gaps in the flow of bodies. It's a skill like reading or arithmetic, except nobody teaches it to you. You just learn, because learning is the difference between getting where you need to go and getting trampled underfoot. The first thing you hear is the singing. Not carol singers this time. These are the street sellers, and their songs are different. Each one has a cry, a kind of melody, a way of calling out their wares that rises above the noise of the crowd. You've heard them all your life, these London cries, and you know them like you know your own heartbeat. Fresh holly, get your mistletoe right here. That's a woman's voice, thin and reedy, coming from somewhere up ahead. You can't see her yet, but you can picture her, wrapped in a shawl, probably Irish judging by the accent, with bundles of green piled in a basket at her feet, holly with its sharp leaves and red berries, mistletoe with its pale, waxy fruit, the kissing bough some people call it. You hang it in the doorway and anyone who stands beneath it can be kissed. You've never stood beneath mistletoe. You've never been kissed by anyone except your mother and your sister. Hot pies, warm pies for a cold night. That voice is deeper, rougher, belonging to a man with a tray strapped to his chest. You can smell them now, the pies. Meat pies, probably. Mutton, if you're lucky. More likely it's offal, the bits of the animal that nobody else wants, ground up and baked in a crust that's mostly lard. Doesn't matter, they smell incredible. Your stomach clenches so hard it actually hurts. You keep walking. Kissing bones for sale. Kissing bones. That's a strange one. Took you years to figure out what kissing bones were. Turns out they're the wishbones from chickens and geese, saved up and sold to people who can't afford a whole bird but still want to pull a bone apart and make a wish. Two people take hold, one on each side, and they pull until it snaps. Whoever gets the bigger piece gets their wish. You wonder what you'd wish for if you had a kissing bone. Food, probably, or warmth. Or for your father to still be alive, for everything to go back to the way it was before, even though you know that's not how wishes work. The past is gone. You can't pull it back, no matter how hard you tug. The market opens up before you like a mouth. Stalls crowd both sides of the narrow street, crammed so close together that their awnings nearly touch overhead. Canvas and wood and whatever else could be cobbled together to make a shelter from the weather, all of it draped in evergreen boughs and bits of ribbon and anything that might catch the eye of a passing customer. The noise is tremendous, sellers shouting over each other, trying to be heard, their voices blending into a kind of roar that fills your head and pushes out everything else. Finest geese in London, madam. Fresh this morning they are. That's the poulterer's stall, right at the entrance, and you stop to look. The geese hang in rows from hooks along the front, their necks dangling, their feathers still attached, their dead eyes staring at nothing. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, fat birds with breasts as big as your head, their skin pale and slightly waxy in the grey light. The smell is overwhelming, that particular smell of raw poultry mixed with sawdust and blood. A woman is haggling with the seller. "That one," she says, pointing at a goose near the end of the row. "That large one looks perfect for the feast." "An excellent choice, madam." The poulterer reaches up with a practised hand, unhooks the bird, holds it up for inspection. £8 if she's an ounce. Feed a family of 10. This one will. How much? 4 shillings 6pence, and worth every penny. 4 shillings 6pence. You do the math in your head. That's more than your mother makes in a week, more than your entire family will spend on food this month for one bird, one single bird that will be eaten in an afternoon and then forgotten. The woman doesn't even flinch. She reaches into her purse, pulls out the coins, counts them into the poulterer's hand. He wraps the goose in paper, ties it with string, hands it over with a little bow. "Merry Christmas, madam, and to you." She walks away, the goose tucked under her arm like it weighs nothing, like 4 shillings 6pence means nothing, and you watch her go with something that isn't quite envy and isn't quite anger. It's more complicated than that. It's the feeling of standing on one side of a glass window and watching someone else live a life you'll never have. You move deeper into the market, past the poulterers, past the fishmongers with its pyramids of oysters and eels writhing in wooden buckets, past the baker's stall where loaves of bread are stacked like bricks. The smell of fresh bread almost makes you dizzy. You haven't had bread that wasn't stale in weeks. The bread your family eats is the stuff the bakers can't sell, the loaves that have gone hard and tasteless, sold for a fraction of the price to people who can't afford anything better. You stop at a stall selling roasted chestnuts. The seller is an old man with a cart and a brazier, the coals glowing orange in the grey morning. He's roasting the chestnuts in a flat pan, stirring them with a wooden paddle, and the smell is like nothing else, sweet and smoky and warm. And the kind of smell that wraps around you like a blanket and makes you forget, just for a second, that you're cold and tired and hungry. "Penny a bag," the old man says, noticing you looking. You shake your head, just watching. He doesn't chase you off. Some sellers would. Some would tell you to move along, stop blocking the customers, get your dirty face away from their merchandise. But this one just shrugs and goes back to his stirring, and you stand there for a long moment, soaking in the warmth of the brazier, letting it seep into your frozen hands. "Thank you," you say, and you mean it. The old man grunts. "Merry Christmas, lad." You move on. The market is getting more crowded now, the press of bodies making it hard to walk. You have to squeeze through gaps, turn sideways, duck under the arms of people who don't even notice you're there. Everyone is talking, laughing, calling out to each other. A woman is arguing with a greengrocer over the price of turnips. 2 men are examining a bolt of cloth, running it through their fingers, debating whether the colour is blue or grey. A child about your age is crying, lost in the crowd, calling for a mother who doesn't answer. You think about helping. You don't. The goose clubs are gathered at the far end of the market. You've been saving this for last, the way you save the best bite of food for the end of the meal. The goose clubs are something special, something that belongs to the poor as much as the rich. Maybe more. Here's how it works. All year long, working families put money aside. A penny here, a halfpenny there, dropped into a jar or a tin or a hole in the floorboards. They join a club, usually organised by a shopkeeper or a pub landlord, and they pay their dues every week without fail. Rain or shine, sick or well, hungry or fed. They pay because they know what's coming. They pay because this is the one day of the year when even the poorest family can have something special on the table, a goose. Their own goose, bought and paid for over 12 months of careful saving, waiting for them at the club on Christmas Eve morning. You can see them now, the Goose Club members. They're lined up at a table behind the poulterer's stall, and they're different from the wealthy shoppers. Their clothes are patched and faded. Their faces are thin, lined with the kind of worry that comes from never quite having enough. But they're smiling, actually smiling, because today, finally, all that sacrifice is going to pay off. One by one, they step forward and give their names. One by one, the club secretary checks his ledger and nods. One by one, they receive their goose, their very own goose, and their faces light up like candles in a dark room. You watch a man pick up his bird and hold it close, almost like he's hugging it. His coat is threadbare, his boots are held together with twine, but in that moment he looks like the richest person in London. His wife is beside him and she's crying, actually crying, tears streaming down her face as she looks at this goose, this £10 bird that probably cost them more than they could spare, that probably meant going without things they needed. But they did it anyway. They saved and they sacrificed and they made it through, and now here they are on Christmas Eve with a goose of their own. You feel something strange in your chest, something that aches. Your family doesn't belong to a goose club. Your family can't afford to put aside a penny a week, not when every penny is needed for food and rent and coal. Your family will be eating bread tonight, probably. Maybe some gruel if your mother can manage it. Maybe some potatoes if the prices have come down. Not goose, never goose. You wonder what it tastes like. You've smelled it cooking, walking past the houses of people who can afford it, but you've never actually tasted it, never had a bite of that crispy skin, that rich dark meat, those drippings that people save for gravy. It's like a dream, a story, something that happens to other people in other lives. William! The voice cuts through the market noise, and you spin around. It's your friend Peter. Well, friend might be stretching it. Peter is another crossing sweeper, a year older than you, with a gap-toothed grin and a talent for getting into trouble. You work neighbouring corners sometimes, share tips about which streets are best, which gentlemen are generous, and which ones will cuff you round the ear if you're not careful. Didn't expect to see you here, Peter says, pushing through the crowd. Thought you'd be working all day. Took a break, wanted to see the market. Peter grins. Same, look what I got. He holds out his hand. In his palm are 3 chestnuts, their shells still warm, their surfaces cracked from the roasting. Where'd you get those? Nicked 'em. Peter's grin widens. Seller was looking the other way, want one? You hesitate. Stealing is wrong. You know that. Your mother has told you 100 times, 1,000 times that no matter how hungry you get, you don't take what isn't yours. God sees everything, she says, and even if he doesn't, the constables do, and a night in the cells is worse than a night with an empty stomach. But the chestnuts are right there, warm, fragrant, real. No, you say, and the word hurts coming out. Thanks, though. Peter shrugs, pops one in his mouth, chews with obvious pleasure. Your loss. He's probably right. It probably is your loss. But you think about your mother, about the way she looks at you with such hope, such trust, like you're the one good thing she has left in the world. You can't betray that. You won't. I should get back, you say. Corner's probably taken by now. Probably. Peter pops another chestnut. See you tomorrow? Yeah, see you. You turn and push back through the crowd, away from the goose clubs and the roasting chestnuts and all the things you can't have, back toward your corner, back toward your broom, back toward the life that's waiting for you whether you want it or not. But something has changed. You're not sure what it is exactly. Maybe it's the Goose Club people, the way they cried over a bird like it was the most precious thing in the world. Maybe it's the chestnuts in Peter's hand, the choice you made not to take one. Maybe it's just Christmas Eve working its strange magic on you, making you feel things you don't usually let yourself feel. Hope, maybe, or something like it. The fog is rolling back in as you reach your corner. The street is still busy, carriages and carts and pedestrians all competing for space, and your spot is miraculously empty. Nobody's taken it. Your broom is where you left it, leaning against the lamppost like a friend waiting for you to come home. You pick it up. You start to sweep. And somewhere in the distance you can hear the carol singers again, their voices rising through the fog, singing about angels and shepherds and a baby born in a manger. It sounds different now, less like a song for other people and more like something that might, just might, include you too. Hark, the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn king. You hum along under your breath, and you keep sweeping. By afternoon, the fog has turned golden. The gas lamps are coming on early today, their flames flickering behind glass, casting pools of yellow light onto the wet cobblestones. You can see them stretching away down the street like a chain of small suns, each one fighting back against the grey. It's one of the things you actually like about winter in London, the way the lamps transform the city, turn it into something almost magical when the daylight fails. Almost. You've made 11 pence today. 11 pence. It's more than you've ever made in a single day of sweeping, and your hand keeps drifting to your pocket to touch the coins, to make sure they're real. 6 pennies and a 5-penny piece, and 2 halfpennies cold and solid against your thigh. Every time you feel them, something loosens in your chest. Tonight, your family will eat. You pack up your broom around 3 o'clock when the light starts to go and the cold becomes too much to bear. Your fingers have stopped feeling like fingers. They're just lumps of meat at the ends of your hands, clumsy and unresponsive, and you have to concentrate hard just to wrap them around the broom handle. The walk home takes twice as long as usual because you keep stopping to blow on your hands, to stamp your feet, to work some feeling back into the parts of you that have gone numb. The streets are different now than they were this morning. The crowds have thinned out, the shoppers heading home with their purchases, the servants hurrying back to prepare dinner for their employers. You pass a woman carrying a basket of oranges, their bright colour almost shocking against the grey. A man with a cart full of cabbages, shouting that he's selling them off cheap, last chance before Christmas. A group of boys your age, running and laughing, throwing snowballs at each other even though there's barely any snow on the ground. You don't join them, you have somewhere to be. The route home takes you through neighbourhoods you don't usually see. Not the slums of the East End, not the cramped and rotting rookeries where you live. These are the streets west of the city, where the houses are tall and clean and the windows actually have glass in them, where servants scrub the front steps every morning and carriages wait in the street like loyal dogs. You shouldn't be here. You know that. A ragged boy in a threadbare jacket, smelling of horse manure and sweat, walking through a neighborhood like this. If a constable sees you, he might stop you, ask questions, wonder what you're doing so far from where you belong. But you take this route anyway, sometimes, when you have the energy, when you need to see something other than the life you're stuck in. Today, you take this route because of the windows. The houses here have windows that go from floor to ceiling, wide enough that you can see right into the rooms beyond, and what you see stops you in your tracks every single time. Christmas trees. Actual Christmas trees standing in the drawing rooms of these wealthy houses, decorated with things you can barely imagine, candles burning on the branches, their flames reflected 1,000 times in the glass ornaments hanging beside them, strings of dried fruit, apples and oranges that have been cut and preserved, their colours faded but still beautiful, ribbons of every shade, red and green and gold, wound around the trunk like the stripes on a barber's pole. And beneath the trees, piled on the carpet, presents wrapped in paper and tied with bows. You stop in front of one house. Just stand there on the pavement, staring through the window like it's a painting in a gallery. Inside, a family is gathered around the tree, a father with side whiskers and a comfortable belly sitting in an armchair with a newspaper, a mother in a silk dress the colour of wine, her hair pinned up in an elaborate style, 2 children, a boy and a girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, playing with something on the carpet, a set of toy soldiers, it looks like, little metal men with painted uniforms. The room glows with warmth. You can see the fire burning in the grate, see the way the light dances on the walls. You can almost feel it, that warmth radiating through the glass. It makes the cold around you feel sharper, more real, more cruel. The mother looks up. For a second, your eyes meet. Just a second. Her face changes, goes through something you can't quite read. Surprise, maybe, or discomfort, or that particular expression people get when they're reminded that the world isn't as neat and orderly as they'd like it to be. Then she turns away and says something to a servant you can't see, and a moment later, heavy curtains sweep across the window, blocking out the light, blocking out you. Right. You keep walking. The thing about Christmas trees is that they weren't always a thing. Your mother told you about it once, back when she used to tell you stories before bed, back when there was time for stories. She said that Queen Victoria and her husband, Prince Albert, had a tree at Windsor Castle. A German tradition, she said, something from the prince's homeland. And then the newspapers printed a drawing of the royal family standing around their decorated evergreen, and suddenly everyone in England wanted one. Everyone who could afford one, anyway. For people like you, a tree would be lunacy. Where would you put it? How would you buy candles to light it? What would you hang on the branches when you barely have food to put in your mouths? The whole idea is absurd. A joke. A decoration for people whose lives are already so comfortable that they need to invent new ways to feel festive. You turn down a side street, leaving the wealthy neighbourhood behind. The change is immediate. The houses get smaller, shabbier. The street gets narrower, darker. The gas lamps fewer and farther between. The smell changes too, less coal smoke and more something else. Something you don't want to think about too hard. Raw sewage, rotting garbage. The accumulated filth of too many people crammed into too small a space. Home. The building looks worse than it did this morning somehow. More tired, more defeated. The bricks are black with soot, and the windows are patched with paper and rags, and the front door hangs crooked on its hinges. Someone has nailed a sprig of holly above the door frame. It's the only sign that tomorrow is Christmas. You push open the door and climb the stairs. Your mother is awake when you come in. She's sitting by the window, the one that looks out at nothing but the brick wall of the building next door, and she's mending something by the last of the daylight. Her needle moves in and out of the fabric with a steady rhythm, mechanical, like the ticking of a clock. She looks up when she hears the door. "William." Her voice is tired but warm. "You're back early." "Made good money today." You cross the room, pull the coins from your pocket, hold them out to her. 11 pence. Her eyes widen, just for a second, but you see it. That flash of relief, of hope, of something close to joy. Then she schools her expression, puts on the calm face she always wears. The one that says everything is going to be fine, even when it isn't. 11 pence, she repeats. That's wonderful, love. That's really wonderful. She takes the coins from your hand, counts them carefully, puts them in the tin box she keeps hidden under the loose floorboard, the tin box that holds everything your family has in the world, your mother's wages, your sweeping money, the few pennies Emma sometimes gets for running errands for the neighbours. It's not much, it's never much, but today it's more than usual, and that matters. Where's Emma? Downstairs. Mrs. Hennessy's watching her. Your mother sets down her mending, stands up, stretches. Her back makes a sound like cracking knuckles. "I should go get her. We can eat soon." "What are we having?" Your mother hesitates, just for a second. "Bread, some cheese. Mrs. Potts gave me a few potatoes in exchange for mending her husband's shirt." Bread, cheese, potatoes. You think about the Goose Club families, clutching their birds like treasures. You think about the wealthy house with its tree and its candles and its toy soldiers on the carpet. You think about the smell of roasted chestnuts, warm and sweet, drifting through the market. "That sounds good," you say, and you mean it, mostly. Bread and cheese and potatoes is better than nothing, better than the gruel you had for dinner last night, better than the hungry nights when there's nothing at all and you go to sleep with your stomach eating itself. Your mother smiles. It's a tired smile, worn thin at the edges, but it's real. "I'll go get your sister. Light the candle, will you? It's getting dark." She leaves. You hear her footsteps on the stairs, creaking down toward the ground floor. You're alone in the room. The candle is on the windowsill, a stub of tallow maybe 2 inches high. You have a box of matches, precious matches that cost a halfpenny and have to last the week. You strike one carefully, shield the flame with your cupped hand, touch it to the wick. The candle catches, flickers, steadies. Light spreads through the room. It's not much. One candle in a window, casting a pale glow that barely reaches the corners, but it changes things, pushes back the darkness just a little, makes the room feel less like a cell and more like a home. You think about what your mother told you once, about how the Victorians, the writers and the reformers and the people who care about such things believe that Christmas is supposed to mean something, not just church and prayers, something bigger, something about coming together, about sharing what you have, about finding light in the darkness, a single candle in a window, maybe that's all it takes. You sit down on the edge of the mattress and wait. Outside, the fog is thickening again, rolling through the streets like smoke. You can hear the city settling into evening. The clatter of wheels is fading. The street sellers are packing up, heading home. Somewhere nearby, a church bell is ringing, calling people to evening services. Christmas Eve. The door opens, and Emma comes bounding in. She's 6 years old, and she doesn't know enough to be miserable. That's the strange thing about children. They can be cold and hungry and dressed in rags, and they'll still find something to laugh about. Emma has been playing with Mrs. Hennessy's cat, apparently, and now she's telling you all about it, her words tumbling over each other in her excitement. And then he jumped on the table, William right on the table, and Mrs. Hennessy said, bad cat, but she was laughing so hard. You pull her onto your lap, she smells like dust and stale sweat and something else, something that's just Emma, and you hold her close and let her chatter. Your mother comes in behind her, carrying a cloth bundle that must be the food. Look what I found, your mother says. She unwraps the cloth. Inside, there's the bread and the cheese and the potatoes she mentioned. But there's something else too. A small paper bag, and inside the bag, nestled in a twist of brown paper, is a single orange. Where did you get that? The greengrocer on the corner. He was giving them away. Said they were too small to sell. Your mother picks up the orange, turns it in her hand. It glows in the candlelight, bright as a miniature sun. Thought we could share it. For Christmas. Emma's eyes go wide. An orange? A real orange? A real orange? You can't remember the last time you had an orange. Years, maybe, before your father died, before everything fell apart. The fruit was a luxury then, and it's an even bigger luxury now. But here it is, sitting in your mother's palm, real and solid and almost impossibly beautiful. Can we have it now? Emma asks. No, sweetheart. Tomorrow, for Christmas breakfast. Emma's face falls, just for a second. Then she rallies, the way children do. Tomorrow is Christmas? Tomorrow is Christmas. Will Father Christmas come? The question hangs in the air. Your mother's face does something complicated, a mix of love and pain, and that particular sadness that comes from not being able to give your children what they want. I don't know, sweetheart. We'll have to wait and see. Emma nods, satisfied with that answer in a way that only a 6-year-old can be. She doesn't understand that Father Christmas doesn't visit houses like yours. She doesn't understand that the presents other children get, the dolls and the toy soldiers and the picture books, cost money your family doesn't have. She still believes in magic. You hope she believes for a little while longer. Your mother starts preparing dinner. There's no stove in the room, no proper way to cook, so she does what she can. The bread is sliced thin to make it stretch. The cheese is crumbled over the top. The potatoes are cold, left over from Mrs. Hennessy's pot, but they're filling, and that's what matters. You eat together on the mattress, the three of you, sharing the food in the candlelight. Outside, the fog has swallowed the city completely. You can't see the building next door, can't see the street below, can't see anything but grey. But inside this room, there's warmth. Not much. Not the blazing fire you saw in that wealthy house, but warmth nonetheless. Emma falls asleep first, curled against your side, her belly full for once. Your mother sits by the candle, her mending back in her hands, and you watch her work in the flickering light. Mum? Yes, love? Do you remember when Dad was alive? When we had Christmas dinner? She's quiet for a long moment. Her needle keeps moving, in and out, in and out. I remember, she says finally. We had beef that year. Your father saved for months to afford it. And we had plum pudding. I made it myself. What did it taste like? Like heaven. She looks up at you, and her eyes are bright in the candlelight. Tears, maybe. Or just the light playing tricks. Like absolute heaven. You don't say anything. What is there to say? That you wish things were different? She knows. That you miss your father? She knows that too. The words would just hang there, useless, so you swallow them down and watch the candle burn. Try to sleep, your mother says. Tomorrow's Christmas. Something good might happen. You don't believe her, but you lie down anyway, your sister's warmth against your back, and you close your eyes. The sounds of the city drift through the thin walls, a drunk singing somewhere, a baby crying, the distant rumble of a late carriage, and somewhere, far away, carol singers. Their voices float through the fog like ghosts, rising and falling in harmonies you can barely hear. You don't know the words, not all of them. but you know the tune. Everyone knows the tune. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright. You fall asleep to the sound of it, and for a little while the hunger and the cold and the fear all fade away, and there's just the music carrying you into the dark. You dream of your father. He's standing at the docks the way he used to stand, with his cap pushed back on his head and his sleeves rolled up past his elbows. The sun is out, which is how you know it's a dream. The sun is never out like this in London, bright and warm and golden, but here it is, shining down on the river, making the water sparkle like someone scattered diamonds across the surface. "William," your father says, "come here, lad." You walk toward him. The dock is empty, which is wrong. The docks are never empty. There should be men shouting, crates swinging on chains, the smell of tar and salt and sweat. But in this dream, it's just the two of you standing at the edge of the water while the gulls wheel overhead. "Look," he says, and points. You look. Out on the river, a ship is coming in, a big one, 3-masted, with sails the colour of fresh cream. It's beautiful. You've never seen a ship like this, not in real life. The ships at the docks are working vessels, dirty and battered, their hulls crusted with barnacles. This one looks like something from a storybook. "That's for us," your father says. "That's our ship, William, going to take us somewhere better." "Where?" But he doesn't answer. When you turn to look at him, he's gone, and the sun is gone too, and you're standing alone on the dock in the dark, and the ship is sinking, slowly, silently, disappearing beneath the black water while you watch. You wake up. The room is cold. Colder than before, if that's possible. The candle has burned out, and there's no light except what seeps through the window from the gas lamp in the street below. Your mother is asleep beside you, her breath slow and even. Emma is a warm lump pressed against your chest, her small hand clutching the fabric of your shirt. You lie still for a moment, listening. The building is quiet, not silent, never silent. You can hear the Murphy's baby fussing on the floor above, that thin, reedy cry that never quite stops. You can hear someone coughing, the same wet cough you've been hearing for weeks, the one that means consumption, the one that means death is coming for whoever makes that sound. You can hear the wind outside rattling the window, trying to get in, but the singing has stopped. The city has gone to sleep. Christmas Eve. Somewhere out there, in the houses with the big windows and the glowing trees, children are tucked into warm beds with full bellies, dreaming of what Father Christmas will bring them in the morning. Dolls with china faces and real hair, toy soldiers with painted uniforms, rocking horses, picture books, oranges in their stockings, nuts and sweets, and all the things that cost money, that require parents who can afford to play at magic. Your mother doesn't have money for magic. You know what tomorrow will bring. The orange, shared 3 ways, maybe some bread toasted over a neighbour's fire, maybe a carol sung together before your mother leaves for the laundry, because even on Christmas Day, the wealthy still need their shirts washed and their linens pressed. The laundry doesn't close for holidays. Nothing closes for people like you. Sleep won't come back. You lie there in the dark, your mind turning over the same thoughts, the same fears, the same questions that have no answers. What happens when the money runs out? It's a question you try not to think about, but tonight it won't leave you alone. 11 pence won't last forever. Your mother's wages barely cover the rent, and winter isn't done yet. There are months to go before the weather warms, before the crowds come back to the streets, before the sweeping picks up again. What happens when there's nothing left in the tin box under the floorboard? The workhouse. The word sits in your mind like a stone. You know about the workhouse. Everyone in the rookeries knows about the workhouse. It's the place you go when you've lost everything else, the place the parish sends you when you can't pay your rent, can't feed your children, can't survive on your own anymore, the place where families go in together and come out in pieces, if they come out at all. You've seen the building. It's not far from here, a great grey pile of bricks with barred windows and a yard behind high walls. You've walked past it dozens of times, always on the other side of the street, always with your eyes down, as if looking at it directly might draw its attention, as if it might reach out and pull you in. The stories. Everyone has stories about the workhouse. Mrs. Hennessy's cousin went in after her husband died and the landlord threw her out. She was separated from her children the moment she walked through the door. Boys in one ward, girls in another, women somewhere else entirely. They saw each other once a week, for an hour, in a room with a guard watching. The rest of the time, they worked, picking oakum, crushing bones, the kind of work that tears your hands apart and leaves you too exhausted to cry. She got out after 6 months. Her children didn't. One died of fever in the children's ward. The other was sent to a workhouse in the countryside, a place for training pauper apprentices, and she never saw him again, just gone, like he never existed. And then there's the food. The famous workhouse food, gruel so thin you can see through it, bread so stale it breaks your teeth, portions so small that the inmates are always hungry, always desperate, always on the edge of starving. There was a scandal a few years back in a place called Andover. The inmates were so hungry that they fought over the bones they were supposed to be crushing for fertilizer. They ate the marrow out of them. Rotting bones meant for fields, and people were sucking the marrow out because they were that hungry. You can't let that happen to your family. You think about the 11 pence in the tin box, about your mother's 4 shillings a week, about all the weeks stretching ahead, all the cold mornings and empty stomachs and long hours of sweeping. You think about what it would take to keep the 3 of you out of that grey building with its barred windows. Everything. It would take everything you have, and even that might not be enough. The window rattles again, a gust of wind carrying the smell of coal smoke and something else. Snow, maybe. There's a sharpness to the air that wasn't there before, a promise of white to come. You close your eyes. Sleep doesn't come, but something else does. A kind of half-doze, a drifting state where you're not quite awake and not quite dreaming. Images float through your mind. Your father's face. The ship sinking, the workhouse gates, tall and black and final, and then something different. The Goose Club families. You see them again, the way they looked this morning at the market, the man hugging his bird like it was made of gold, the woman crying, tears streaming down her face, overwhelmed by something as simple as a goose. They were poor too. You could tell from their clothes, their thin faces, the way they carried themselves. They weren't so different from you, but they made it work. A penny at a time, a year of sacrifice, and at the end, something to show for it, something to celebrate. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's how you survive, not by hoping for miracles, not by wishing for ships that will never come, just by putting one foot in front of the other, one penny after another, one day, 1 week, 1 year, until you've built something, until you've saved enough to keep the workhouse at bay. It's not much of a plan. It's barely a plan at all. But it's better than nothing. You open your eyes. The window is lighter than before. Not much, just a shade less dark. Dawn is coming. Christmas morning is coming. And with it, whatever the day will bring. You think about the orange in your mother's pocket. That small, bright miracle. A greengrocer's cast-off, too small to sell, and yet here it is, waiting to be shared. 3 ways, so each of you gets a taste, so each of you has something sweet on your tongue on Christmas morning. It's not a feast, it's not a tree with candles, it's not presents piled under the branches, but it's something. The baby upstairs has stopped crying, the coughing has quieted, even the wind seems to have settled, as if the whole building is holding its breath. You lie there in the slowly brightening dark, your sister warm against your chest, your mother's breath steady beside you, the three of you together, alive. That's more than some people have. That's more than the families in the workhouse have, separated and starving and stripped of everything but their names. You have each other. On the floor above, you hear movement, someone getting up, moving around, starting their day. A door creaks open, footsteps on the stairs. The building is waking up. Christmas morning, your mother stirs beside you, makes a small sound, opens her eyes. For a moment, she just looks at you in the grey light, and you look back. Neither of you says anything. There's nothing that needs to be said. Then she smiles, tired, worn, but real. "Happy Christmas, love," she whispers. "Happy Christmas, Mum." Emma shifts against you, mumbles something in her sleep. Your mother reaches over and strokes her hair, gentle, the way she used to stroke yours when you were small and scared and didn't understand why the world was so hard. "Let her sleep a bit longer," your mother says. "We've got time." You nod. There's nowhere to go, nothing pressing, just this room, this moment, this small family holding on to each other in the early light of Christmas Day. Outside, the city is waking too. You can hear it, the distant rumble of wheels, earlier than usual because the markets will be closed and people want to get home. A door slamming somewhere, a dog barking, and underneath it all, so faint you might be imagining it, the sound of church bells. Not the loud, clanging bells that mark the hours. These are different, softer, more musical, the bells that call people to Christmas services, ringing out across the foggy city, telling everyone that the day has come. You listen to them for a long moment. Your mother is praying. You can tell from the way her lips are moving, silently, shaping words you can't hear. She does this sometimes, not as much as she used to, back when your father was alive and things were easier, but still, sometimes, when things are hard, when she needs something to hold on to. You don't pray, you're not sure